Welcome to the weekly Ein Yaakov class. Today's Thursday, the 11th of the month of Kislev. Today's my grandmother's yahrzeit. So the class today should be in her schus. Etel Nechama, Pastor Yisrael Yosef. Shem have the biggest aliyah. Chesed right now. The topic where we left off last week. There was an assembly in the city of Yavne. So after the destruction of the Second Temple, that's where the scholars conveyed. That's where the study hall was. And different rabbis were getting up to speak in the respect, in the honor of Torah, and in the honor of those that honor Torah, those that give respect to those that study Torah. And we spoke last week, the fact that Moshe moved his tent outside the camp, and we said those that went to go there were called seekers of God. So how much more so those that travel from city to city. We spoke last week the importance of learning with a study partner or studying with a group and the benefits of studying with a group versus learning alone. So we're going to continue more a little bit on that same subject. Rabbi Yanai says, this is a pasuk, a verse, it says the following, Mishlei, it says, Ki mitz chalav yoitzi chema. Mitz means when you squeeze out. So when you squeeze out from milk, you will bring out butter. Mitz af, the squeezing out. Af, now af can either mean nose, or af also many times in the Torah means anger. So the squeezing out of anger brings forth blood. Now obviously, meant literally, if you squeeze your nose, blood's going to come out, right? Mm-hmm. But there's obviously a deeper meaning over here. Umitz apayim, and squeezing out of either noses or anger, again, double anger, will bring out riv. Riv is like strife and fighting and arguments. So this is a very puzzling verse. And like many of the verses in the Torah, especially in Mishlei and those parts of the Torah came with interpretations. So the way Rabbi Yanai is going to explain this verse is as follows. Go back to the squeezing out of the milk brings out the butter, or like the pressure of the milk comes out the butter. What does that mean? The chema of Torah, the butter of Torah, is teaching and being able to delve deeply into the Torah. Where do you see, by whom do you find the mitz, the butter of the Torah? Where do you find that? By someone that had mitz. Now, what does mitz mean? Normally, it means squeezing out. The way he translates is someone that needs to, Rabbi Yanai, someone that will get rid of, is going to, the words that he uses, meki. Meki means like to throw out. Someone that's going to remove from himself the milk that he nursed from his mother. What does that mean? He's going to get rid of the milk that he nursed from his mother. Mm-hmm. So the commentaries explain that to mean a person's habits, and a person's things that he's used to from his childhood. Some commentators explain that children, they get spoiled by their mothers, and that spoiling that their parents do to them, the milk that their mother nourishes them, refers to all the worldly pleasures. If you want to be able to get to the butter of Torah, you want to be able to get to the inner parts of Torah, you have to let go of the past. You have to let go of your childish habits, like sneaking cookies by night. Mm-hmm. Or no, just joking. Some habits. Was
that a confession?
Confession on camera. Just this morning, my wife was all upset that the kids took the cookies, and I said, "No, it was me."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Explain Torah a little more.
So we get rid of the childish habits, then you get to the butter of Torah. Next, we said the pressure and the squeezing out from the nose or from the anger brings out blood. What does that mean? This refers to a student that his teacher, Shekoyas Alav Rabbi Pam Rishayna, his teacher got angry at him the first time. Now he's not getting angry at him for making trouble. This is talking about a student that his teacher got angry at him for not understanding. But you listen, teaching you. Said it already. I already explained it. Why aren't you paying attention? The teacher gets angry at him. So if the student is quiet, b'shaisek, he's quiet when his teacher is angry at him, this student will actually merit lahavchin bein dam tameh ledam tahar. One of the more complex laws in the Torah is being able to differentiate between different types of blood. There are certain types of blood which are impure, and some bloods are pure. And sometimes you need to go to a rabbi and to ask him, this blood, this tint of blood, this red, dark red, pink red, pinkish red. And the rabbis, they get special rabbis, they need to train for this for many years. They're able to differentiate between what type of blood it's coming from to render whether it's pure or impure. So this is a student that goes through this humiliation. Is that the way you say it? Humiliation? Humiliation from his teacher, and is kept quiet, he will merit to be able to get to these complex laws in Torah. And the next part of the verse continued, and the mitzapayim, the double anger, will come out quarreling. What does that mean? If this back to the same student. This is a student that his teacher got angry at him a first time and a second time, multiple times. And Vishaisik, he took in the anger from his teacher, and he accepted it. He bared with it. He will merit lahavchin bein dinim mamnis ladin nefashis. He's going to be able to differentiate between the laws of not just being able to deal with nefashis. Nefashis are laws of like what's allowed, what's not allowed, someone's guilty or not guilty. And dinim mamnis, the laws of monetary laws, are even more complex. Monetary laws are one of the most complex sections of Torah, of the Torah law. A rabbi that needs to be well versed in the dinim mamnis when it comes to monetary laws. Those are more complex. A lot of rabbis, you call them and you say, I have a question about a dispute that I have with this person and that person, and this much money, that much money, and this much interest, that. And a lot of rabbis will tell you, you have to go to a special rabbi that deals with these types of things. Now he moved, but we had a rabbi that lived down the block by the Gerish Gibel. He moved to Israel now. But he was one of the famous rabbis in New York that was for this type of laws. When it came to business matters, not every rabbi knows. You need to be really involved in business, and you know how business works, and And so this student that suffered the humiliation of his teacher multiple times, he will merit to reach that level of learning to be able to become knowledgeable even those laws. Something unique about these laws that we don't find anywhere else, with the laws of monetary, is that it's the commentaries point out, it's the only area in Jewish law where a rabbi has permission. I don't know if permission is not the right word. The rabbi has the authority to be able to rule on with his own intellect on such matters. There are a lot of laws when it comes to monetary laws that it says that the judge needs to rule lefi ra'os einav, according to the way his eyes see.
Can you give me just a little example?
When it comes to dispute between neighbors,
What kind of dispute, like?
Neighbors, or monetary, or agreements, or breaking contracts, or contracts.
So say if I owe you $1,000.
Okay, so that's a very simple case. I owe you, you don't owe me. But a lot of times when it gets complex, if we divide it by 30%, 20%, and then there's a clause over there that if I break the contract after 2 years, and but we didn't write that detailing, we spoke about it, but we didn't write it down. And
they weren't giving them heat.
There's so many different things could come up in business. Lawyers don't have down pat all the laws. A lot of times you need to go to the judge, and the judge will decide.
Just today, I was at Benny's on Avenue J, and a guy
Mexican
Wait, just
guy.
today you were by Benny's?
And they had a DoorDash order, right? And he comes up and he says, "There's a DoorDash order," and the guy says, "Oh, another person already came and took it." And they realized that guy was just a random guy, not the worker, and he just stole the food. So halachically, who has to do what? Does the person who ordered the food has to lose the money, or the person who distributes the food has to lose money?
They should have been more careful.
That's an example of a halachic question. Go to a rabbi. I would say in such a case that the store
Probably
is
the store. They should have.
The store is on the hook. They did not deliver the goods.
Careless.
Not legally, halachically we're talking.
Careless. They were careless.
Right. Anyway, okay. There are a lot of laws, and it comes very complex. Interest. You're not allowed to take interest, but there are certain leeways, certain loopholes. Only a disagreement, and what if that one partner left? And a lot
But
of.
it's based on Jewish law, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, there's actually a classic story. You remind me of this. There's a classic Jewish story where it comes with where the Jewish wit comes to play. There was these three business. I'll say it very short. There's these three business partners. They go on a business venture, travel out of town, and it works very successful. And they come out with a lot of money. Now they're on their way home, and they stop by an inn, a Jewish inn run by some Jews, and they had a lot of money, so they wanted the Jewish innkeeper to safeguard the money for them, a ton of money. So they give it to the innkeeper, and they say, "This money is a lot of money." All three of them said, "We only give you permission to give it back to us, to all three of us. All three of us are here." Okay? Sure, no problem. Put it in the safe, locked it up. Everything's good. They spend the Shabbos by the inn, and Sunday they're ready to leave. They paid the host, and they start packing up the bags, they start packing up the wagon. As they're leaving, the money. So two of them are in the wagon, and one of them is still getting into the wagon. They say, we'll go get the money from us. And so he goes to get the money, and the guy says, "You told me only all three." "They're in the wagon right here." He's like, "No, you said all three guys need to be here. Come on." They're already all packed, take off they're already comfortable in the wagon, they're not interested in coming out. So guy calls out from there, he's like, "Hey, he wants you to come in." Okay, they call out from the car, "You see us, we're here? Okay, we're telling you, go give him the money, it's okay." So the guy goes, opens up the safe, gives him the money. Meanwhile, this third partner, the one that went to get the money, takes the money, and he escapes from the back of the hotel, and makes off with the money.
He disappears.
And now he's gone. It's a ton of money, and the two partners and the two other partners, they're stuck. What are they going to do? And they feel a little guilty doing this, but they go to the innkeeper and they say, "Listen, we did make up that you're only allowed to give it back to all three, and we actually did it for that reason, right? The fact is, we weren't there,
But it's on them.
and we told you, but we weren't here. So you shouldn't have listened to us. You should have insisted that we came in person. So you have to give us the money."
It wasn't enough just to hear the voice from 50 feet away.
So they claimed, and he said, "I'm sorry, I got to go to I don't have so much money. I don't even own so much money. Sorry." They went to the rabbi, and the rabbi says, according to the circumstance, you have to reimburse. He's devastated. He goes to the biggest rabbi he could think of, and the guy says, "Don't worry about it. I have a very simple solution." Tells him what to say. He goes back. Comes to the court case. They're going to have to give over the money. And the judge said, "We already worked that before, but you have to pay back the money." So he says, "Sure, no problem. I'm ready to pay it back. But I'm only allowed to give it back to all three of you." Being the third guy, I'll give it back.
That's a good one, yeah.
This is like a Jewish way.
I got it.
Give it back and then.
They have to come up with a third guy. If they came up with a third guy, then they would have the money. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So that's something unique we find by monetary law, where a Jewish rabbi, if it has to be someone well-versed, is able to actually rule according to his wisdom. On all other matters of the Torah, you could be the greatest rabbi. You cannot make up, according to your understanding, any law. All Jewish laws are not based off human understanding. They're godly. They're godly wisdom. no matter the complex case. God says so, you cannot decide, it makes sense to me that this tefillin should be kosher according to my understanding. Let's just think. Is it kosher or not kosher according to the Torah laws? You cannot use your understanding when it comes to laws, if something's allowed, not allowed, something's kosher, not kosher. When it comes to monetary, that's the only area, and even in there, within a certain framework, we give the rabbis permission to rule according to the way they see fit. Okay, let's move on.
That's when you take someone to Bet Din, you mean?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the judges are rabbis
Yes.
too?
Yes. What?
The judges are rabbis also? They're
Yeah.
both?
According to the Mishnah here, the only way to get knowledge of this blood and these civil laws are to anger
No,
the rabbi.
No,
You have to anger the rabbi. He has to yell at you twice. And, if you're calm when he yells at you twice, then you
Then you'll
win.
be an attorney.
First of all, I have two answers. First of all, every student was at least get angry at least once.
Yeah, and every rabbi gets
Lemon, you
angry
confirm?
every day.
And second of all, it doesn't say this is the only way. It says that if someone went through this humiliation, he will merit to this. It doesn't say this is the only way.
So the rabbi has to yell at you.
Yeah. But you were never yelled at? I was yelled at.
Rabbi.
I think everybody here got yelled at least once. So
I
we're all
once got
good.
the wind knocked
Unfortunately,
out of me by a
The main
rabbi.
thing is about keeping quiet after you.
I unfortunately yelled back, but
No, then he doesn't work.
I know.
Okay, like Rabbi Shmuel said, if someone wants to become really smart, so the area of Torah that he should study the most should be the area of monetary laws. That's the most complex.
There's a Gemara for that?
What?
You have
Rabbi
a good
Shmuel
day.
said that.
Is there a Gemara for it? Which,
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah,
oh, there's more than one.
yeah. There's a lot about it. Most of the whole Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, they're all about the
Financial.
the whole financial. Yeah. And it's like a kamaya novea. When it comes to these monetary laws, he compares it to a stream of water. You have a mikvah, is a pool of water, and you go there to become pure. You also have a stream of water that you could dip in there and it become pure. What's the difference between going into the mikvah or going into the spring? So going to the spring was actually halachically better in many areas, many ways.
Living water.
Right? But one of the differences between the mikvah and the stream is that if you take out water away from the mikvah, so you are now making the water in the mikvah less. If you take out water from the spring, you're not the water staying
It's not
staying
diminished.
the full amount. So when it comes to the laws of monetary laws, this whole concept, this whole way of thinking of the monetary laws, you always have room to grow. There's always room to come up with new, and you see how business changes. And this whole concept, the rabbis that are into these monetary laws, they always have to be up to date with the latest cash advance. Is it interest, not interest? Is it this? And every day there's new things coming out, and they need to keep on updating with their knowledge that they have of Torah, what the laws would be, what the Torah would hold in this such and such a case.
With Bitcoin or with whatever.
Yeah.
No, I think that the major thing was the internet, right?
Off the internet, you're ordering on Shabbos. Is it going to come on Shabbos? Is it going to deliver in your courtyard? How much of your courtyard is considered acquiring the object or not? Who's taking responsibility? That the UPS and the FDA? Where's the UPS coming from? Outside the limits of the city, the Tchum or not? There's so many different laws that come with the days, with the modern technology. The laws need to be constantly updated. So that's why it's compared to a stream of water, which keeps on being replenished.
I heard there is a rabbinical court, and that there are rabbis that study, but their sole ambition is to be part of this rabbinical court. Is that a true statement?
So I'm not sure what you mean by rabbinical court. There is something called being ordained as a rabbi, and then once you're ordained as a rabbi, there's a higher level of being ordained to be able to judge,
Adjudicate.
Adjudicate.
So I was told proper by this fellow who's
So you have to
practicing.
become
Yeah.
a rabbi in order to become a Jew.
When I was a student, I studied I did the first level of rabbi. So I was ordained to be a rabbi, but I never did that second step of being
You
a
don't
judge.
need to, you're a coin. You already got the whole
second
holy
step of
gold.
what?
It's called in
Right.
language. It's
No,
called
no, no,
dayanis.
no, no, no.
To be able to be like a judge.
Oh, it's a Paskin halacha, you're
You
saying?
have to pass. To be able to adjudicate.
Well, it doesn't matter anyway.
You
If
don't-
all
you
of smichas nowadays is anyway fake.
Yeah, so you have to
Okay.
become a
is.
second level rabbi. in
That's
order
what
to
it
become a
Yeah,
Jew.
that's what he was studying.
Okay, one more verse over here. Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, what it says a verse, Im navalta v'hisnase v'im zamoisa yad lapeh. The im nevalta, the literal translation means, if somebody became dirty, someone became soiled.
Soiled or impure.
Let me see what the translate over here.
Because there's external, there's internal.
So we don't. What it means literally, we don't even know. Like most of these verses are not understood at all without any interpretations. But over here, whoever has become degraded.
Okay.
So it says, "Im nivalta," if you became degraded, behisnase, by lifting yourself up. Ve'im zamoisa, if you devised evil, yad lepeh, by putting a hand to a mouth. Now, how do they translate this verse? So, anyone that's going to be lowering yourself, which means, the way they're translating it over here is, by exposing your ignorance, by asking your teacher questions. I actually spoke about this today in class. When you ask a question to your teacher, you're exposing your ignorance. And for many students, it's embarrassing to ask. Yeah. You're basically saying, I don't know.
That's how you learn, right?
Right. But it's embarrassing.
But how do you learn?
So it says, Kol hamenavel atzmai al divri sayra. Whoever is going to embarrass himself for the sake of Torah, which means he's going to ask the teacher questions, he will be able to, in the end, he will be raised up. He will grow in his learning. But if you're going to be embarrassed and you're not going to ask any questions, yad lepeh. In the end, you're going to have to cover your mouth. You're not going to know what to answer. People are going to ask you questions. I don't know. You're going to be stuck with your ignorance. So this teaches us the importance of if you have a question, you ask. See? Right there.
Here we go.
What about being a Rashi?
Living example.
Being a Rashi.
Being a Rashi?
Rashi.
Being a Rav
commenting on
Shmuel.
everything.
It's always good.
Being a Rav Shimon Yitzchaki?
No. These guys are always smart. That's why they always talk in riddles.
Okay.
No, they're not.
Yeah, what do you think this
Rashi
is?
doesn't
He who
talk through
degrades himself, and lifts himself up.
Rashi itself is made for a 5-year-old
He's the most
kid
straightforward
to
Rashi.
understand it.
Okay, we're moving now to the next.
No. I wasn't referring to being a Rashi in that sense.
We gotta go a little. We gotta move forward.
Commentator.
Rabbi Nehemiah, we're going back to that assembly. Remember, rabbis were getting up and speaking in the honor of those that learn Torah, and also in the honor of those that give honor to those that learn Torah. So it's called achsanya. When you host scholars, you are being an achsanya. You are hosting Torah study. You're furthering Torah study. Enabling Torah study. So now we're going to have a few rabbis that are going to expound on different verses that teach us the importance of it. So Rabbi Nehemiah starts off and he says the following. It says the verse, this is a verse from King Saul.
Mad Saul.
King Saul. Not mad. God forbid.
Was he mad?
Was he the first king?
The first Jewish king, a big tzaddik, righteous person. And
Until
always, these tzaddikim, we don't understand. When we learn the Torah, the stories of the prophets, we only hear the bad stuff about them because we are meant to learn lessons, how to perfect our ways. But they were completely righteous in all their ways, and the fact that the Torah is only mentioning their faults just goes to further how special they were. And they're so special that we're even able to learn from their faults. But God forbid to look at them and put them down and say, oh, he sinned, and that guy did. These were all great tzaddikim. So King Saul calls out to the Canaanites. Canaanites were a group of descendants that descended from Yitro. Yitro was Moses' father-in-law. So
He was a parashayim after him, no?
Yes. So Yitro himself did not join the Jewish people into the land of Israel. However, he sent some of his children or grandchildren to join the Jewish people. Some of them intermingled and became full-fledged Jews. And some of them stayed with their family traditions and didn't take it all in.
Yitro stayed in Midian?
Yeah. Some of his offspring intermingled with the nations of the land, the non-Jewish nations. They made peace treaties with them. Some of them were good, some of them were not good.
like all treaties.
Yeah. Now King Saul, he calls out to the Canaanites that were living amongst the Amalekites. Amaleks. He was on a mission now to destroy the Amaleks, and surrounded them, and living nearby was a group of Canaanites. Now, when you're going to have war, you're going to have shooting and bombs and missiles. you got to send evacuation notices. So the IDF sends out drops those leaflets. So King Saul sends a message to the Canaanites, giving you advanced warning to evacuate. We're going to be coming through, and we don't want any of you guys to get hurt. Why are we giving you this advanced warning? So he said, "The Ata Asisa Chesedim Kol Yibnei Yisrael." You, the Canaanites, did a kindness with the Jewish people. So because of the kindness that you did to the Jewish people, right now we're sparing your lives, and we're giving you a heads up to get up. Now, which kindness did they do? If you look into history, Canaanites didn't really do any kindness. What kindness did they do? Yitro, when he came to visit his father-in-law in the desert, so it says he brought sacrifices, and he offered the food to Moshe and to Aaron, Moshe's brother, and to the leaders of the Jewish people. He basically hosted them for a meal. He came, he was the guest. In the desert. He was a guest, but he paid for the meal. He sponsored his own welcoming meal. But that's an honor. That's an honor that he gave for the Jewish people.
This is before Moshe is married to Zipporah.
No, after. Much after.
Much after.
So now we make that Kal V'chomer. Remember that Kal V'chomer, what it means?
40 Uri.
40 Uri, yeah, that's in English.
If a brick weighs heavy, of course a fridge is going to weigh heavy.
A brick, a feather.
A feather weighs heavy. Yeah.
Right, so this Kal V'chomer. If Yitro, which all he did was he paid for a meal, and that's called he did a kindness to the Jewish nation, and for that his descendants, many, a couple hundred years later, 500 years later, his descendants get saved from being wiped out because they're neighbors to terrorists. So
unless you
No,
don't
but
leave a
Midian
tip,
already
and
messed up.
we kill
On the
you
way
all.
out,
Right.
the Baal Peor, weren't they commanded to...
but these Canaanites joined the Jewish people, so they're not really part of the Midianites. So, and Yitro, when he did it, why did he give the food? It was really for his own honor. It was his own welcoming meal. So he paid for the meal, but it was for his own honor. And yet, he was such rewarded that his descendants get spared. Of course, if someone's going to go and invite a Talmudic scholar to his house, which that itself is already praiseworthy. And not only that, he's going to give him food, which is even more praiseworthy. And not only that, he's also going to give him a couple of bucks and give him a couple of dollars of pocket money and spending money and set him up. He should be successful.
That's my new
How
friend.
much more so you credit that person will get. So Yitro, just give a meal, and if you're actually going to invite them into your house and teach and give them whatever they need, how much more honor you will get. Rabbi Yossi said another similar concept, but from a different verse. It says a verse in Deuteronomy. It says regarding the Egyptians, there's certain nations that are not allowed to enter the Jewish nation at all, for never, ever. Certain nations, after a few generations, meaning of converts, then they're able to enter into the Jewish nation. So Mitzrayim, Egyptians, are one of those nations that you're able to, they are eventually able to come intermarry into the Jewish nation. You're not going to push them away completely.
It's Misri. People last name Misri are
No, Mitzri. People from Egypt.
Yeah, Misri.
Yeah. Why? Because what's the reason why they get this merit of being able to eventually join the Jewish nation? Because you were a foreigner in their land, and they hosted you in their land. The fact
Several
is,
times.
I know, but for many years, the Jewish people were foreigners in the land of Egypt. Yes, they messed us up, and they turned us into slaves, and they tortured us. But before that, we enjoyed hospitality, right? From the Egyptians. When Jacob came down with his family, Egypt hosted us. So
Didn't
that
Paro
the
try to
Torah
take
says.
his wife? Didn't Paro try to take the wife? When they went to Egypt, wasn't there a time that the...
I'm getting mixed up.
Oh,
Potiphar
that was
with
with Sarah,
Joseph.
maybe. No.
Oh, yeah,
It's
right,
Abraham.
that's before. Right, that's it. So here we see that in the merit of Pharaoh hosting the Jewish Jacob and his family, and they got rewarded that they could eventually join the Jewish nation. And even though it says right there when they came, Pharaoh says to Joseph, "Who from your brothers know how to take care of cattle? Know how to take care of my sheep? Who's over here good workers? I want to recruit them for my army. I want to recruit them for my workermen. I want to use out their services." So even then the hospitality that they were offering was limited. You had to work. wasn't free migrants, free shelter.
What did Yosef
Yeah,
answer?
So he did it. He set up he brought
he
the
did
weaker
it.
ones. Yeah. So if the Egyptians, for their hospitality for the Jewish people, which was only for their own honor, they got such rewarded, how much more so if someone's going to invite this, and the same ends up the same way. If someone's going to invite the scholar into his house and going to feed him and give him and help him out, he'll be rewarded.
How do I know the value of a scholar?
You mean,
I mean, a lot of
value
people-
or eligibility?
Yeah, let's say I'm going to invite someone to my home
Right.
as a scholar.
So these days,
And go to Meal Mart and give them $100 or $1,000.
so
whatever.
these days, you don't really have to invite them in your house because the way we live today is different than the way it was back then, with housing, just technicality. These days, what would translate into practicality is that you have many places called a kollel. Kollel are where you have students or scholars that they learn the whole day. And they're studying and they're advancing in their studies.
Yeshiva buffers.
So you have yeshiva students, but then you have people that are married that they are learning Torah, and they're not working. So people that do work, they support these scholars. You could come and say, look at it completely opposite way and say, oh, why should I pay? I work and you sit and learn. But no, if you're looking at it with the right perspective, the Torah's perspective, the Torah is God's wisdom. And this is very special and holy, and really everyone should be studying. But now we can't have the whole word studying. So you need to have, every community needs to have a group of scholars. And this is the thing that's been going on for all these years. That's why Torah is so active and so alive. Because of these systems that are in place of having people constantly learning. So by you supporting these people that are learning Torah, or yeshiva students, it doesn't matter. If someone can't afford tuition, and you pay for that person's tuition, the merit of that learning, this is what we're talking about. This is where how it translates in today's day and age.
I recently read an article that people in Israel are getting more religious. You know how they have they have liberal Jews. They want to take Israel in one direction, and then
Right.
there's the Orthodox Jews. They want to pull Israel in another direction. Right.
Right.
So people in Israel are becoming more religious, and these liberal Jews, they're screaming their heads off, more than ever.
Right.
That's what liberals do.
Yeah.
So now comes Rabbi Yehuda Bar Zvida. He says another place where we see the importance of honoring or hosting Torah scholars. It says there was a man. His name was Oved Edom. Oved Edom, he lived in the time of King David, and at that time the ark that had the luchos, the ark of the covenant, was homeless. What does it mean it was homeless? There was no temple, because the temple was not yet built. The temporary temple, where it was in the meantime, was not did not have the ark, was not there for whatever reason.
It was hidden. No, didn't some?
It's a long story.
They hid it.
It was captured by the Philistines, and then it came. They got it back. So it's a long story. King David at one point wanted to bring it to Jerusalem, and he forgot the law that you're not allowed to carry. That it has to be carried. You cannot burn it in a wagon. And he put it in a wagon, and someone died because of that story. He thought the ark was going to fall, and he held on to it. Right. So because right after that story, like everyone was shocked. Somebody just died right next to the ark. Everyone was shocked. Yeah. So King David said they should leave it in someone's house. Someone that lived right there. His name was Oved Edom, and he said, "Leave it in your house in the meantime." Him and his family, they took very good care of the ark. What did they do with the ark? What does it mean take care? We're not
supposed to touch it.
What does it mean they took care? So they cleaned the room.
Is a Kadosh Kodoshim usually.
Right. So what it means that they took care of it. They cleaned the room. Make sure the room that it was in was always clean. It says in those days the floors were made out of earth, so dust would rise. So they had this system of sprinkling water on the floor, which causes the dust to settle. Yeah. And they wiped the surface, and they kept it clean, kept it nice. And for a while they hosted the ark in their house. And the verse tells us that they merited and they got God's blessing. What was the blessing? Listen to this. don't know if you're going to call this a blessing, but this is what the blessing was. Oved Edom's wife, beforehand, already had 8 sons. They all married. So that's 8 daughters-in-law.
Where were they living?
In Eretz Yisrael. And each of his 8 daughters-in-law all gave birth to 6 children at a time. 6 babies
tuplets.
6 tuplets, right. And his wife also gave birth to 6 babies. 6 tuplets, 6 kids at the same time.
Same time.
Same
Like
time.
twins,
Twins, triplets, 4, 5, 6.
okay.
So, and the verse counts their names. Altogether, in the whole family, it says there were 62 people. Obed Edom had 62 people in his family, all from God's blessing. I think the 62, you have 8 times 6 is 48. And then he had his 8 kids from before, and then plus 6 new ones, so altogether 62. So so with that we finished about the importance of hosting scholars and respecting them. Okay, let's move on to the next piece. This is actually coming close to the end of the track.
Notice there seems to be a very similar theme here.
We said this was
people
hosting
being
scholars.
Rewarded
Yeah,
for taking in Torah scholars.
we said this is what they were discussing by the assembly. Yeah.
No, but like all 3 of them. This one.
That's right. These 3 were all saying the same thing.
Is,
Right.
Rabbi Nehemiah.
Right. They all 3 say the same thing.
Talking about the Kenites, and then Rabbi
Yehuda.
Yossi talking about the Edomites and the Egyptians.
Right.
And
Rabbi
the
Yehuda
third
talking.
one that we haven't even started yet.
No, I just said the third one is Rabbi Yehuda. We just said about the Oved Edom with the ark. We finished all 3.
Wait.
We had the Canaanites, we had the Egyptians, and we had about the ark.
Right.
The
Those
what?
3.
About the Arca?
About the ark, hosting the ark in their house.
Yeah.
So they got blessed. Okay, now moving on to the next series of lessons.
And no one tried to come steal it from the house?
Amar Rabbi Abin HaLevi. Rabbi Abin the Levi says the following. It's a very powerful lesson. Kol hadoichik es hasha'ah shah doichaktoi. Anyone that is doichik. Doichik means forces time. The time will push him back, or he's gonna lose out from this time that he's trying to. What does it mean? It means as follows: every person has his time that he is destined for richness, for greatness. Everyone has his time that Hashem decided for this person when he's going to rise up. It's called his time.
But it's not guaranteed.
And we don't know when that time is. If someone is doichek, he pushes and forces himself to reach to that time before the time that God wants him to reach there. It doesn't mean you can't try to be rich anytime you want. But if you see that it's not working, you're supposed to get the message that right now it's not my time. If you keep on forcing it, I'm gonna get there. That's called forcing the time. Then it says that the time will fire back.
So
And-
don't try hard? What's it saying?
What? Time will give way. Time will lose out.
Meaning, like, if you're pursuing in money and you're not getting rich from working or something, don't keep on working? Well, what's it saying?
No.
Be lazy?
No. You have your parnasa. You have to have your livelihood. That's important.
Where you for your time?
So when you want to get to somewhere which is completely not you, you want to become. Someone decides one day, I want to be Marco Rubio. This guy is so popular. He's such a. I want to be Mr.
Whatever.
I want to have 100,000 social media
I want to
followers.
be a rabbi.
I want to have 100,000
It
followers.
takes one step at a time, right?
Yeah, but I want to become the
Desperate.
biggest influencer in the world.
Why not? Go become.
Okay, you could try,
Yeah.
but if you see that it's not for you,
Keep going.
so
Yeah,
so
keep on trying.
don't force. He says this. Everyone has their
But
time.
don't push it.
Everyone has their time for greatness. Don't force it upon you.
How would you
Because
force
you're
it?
lying to yourself.
You would force it by being who you're not.
But I think the road to
I don't
success
know,
is through failure, right?
So we're not
No.
saying. So
The road to failure is through failure.
no.
I don't think so.
You're bringing a good point.
I don't think so.
You do have to try to succeed. We're not talking about that someone is not successful in life should give up and wait for life to become successful.
It's pleasure for you.
What we're saying for here is, if someone wants to reach something that's completely not in his grasp.
You never heard of
Trump becoming president, then maybe it wasn't in his grasp. Now it was his time. He tried to go for it, but it wasn't his time.
To be president second time.
Okay, so his time to be president was really now. He should have waited. He
David, this really bothers me. I don't cop what you're saying. You're saying try, but don't try hard enough.
Hence, what you're trying for. Okay, how about we listen to the example that he gives, and maybe we'll understand it a little better. If somebody doesn't try to push the time, and he waits for Hashem to do it, then it's going to come, and it will come to him.
He's patient.
Patient, it will come to him. And we learned the story from Rabbi and Rav Yosef. These were two great scholars, Rabbi and Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef had a nickname. His name was Sinai, because he was well versed in all the sayings of the sages, as if he just got it from Torah from Mount Sinai. So they gave him a nickname. They called him Sinai, because his Torah was so clear to him. Rabbi, he had a nickname. His nickname was Oiker Harim, uprooting mountains. That was his nickname. Why? Because he was able to take a concept in Torah and go so deep and make a pilpul and connect from here to here to here. That was his
forte.
His unique ability, his forte, his gift that he had. So these were two, and they're both friends.
What were their names again?
Rabbi and Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef was the one that was more, everything was clear by him, organized, Sinai, yeah. Another one was uprooting mountains. So at one point, they were both very poor. And at one point, the rabbis needed a new Rosh Yeshiva. They needed a head of the academy. And they actually wanted to pick one of these two to lead the academy. And they obviously you get a good salary. If you lead the academy, you get honor, you get a salary, you become the important, big macher. So they weren't sure which one they should pick. They had a tough choice. So they sent a question to Jerusalem. They were in Babylonia, this story. They sent a question to Jerusalem. Who's better, Sinai or uprooting mountains? So they knew already who they're talking about. And they wrote back the message, Sinai is better. Why? Because, and they gave an example. He said everyone needs to have wheat. How does that wheat. Food, wheat. Flour. Wheat. Everyone needs to have flour. What are they saying by that? So it's brought down somewhere else in the Talmud. There's different types of students, different types of scholars. The type of scholar that has everything organized, and he has everything in his own information, he's compared to someone having a storage house of wheat. He has all the information.
What was the name again? Uprooted Mountains?
Oker Harim.
Yeah, what was it related to?
Rabbi.
Right. Why?
He knew how to go into some concept and
how to
research and go deep and connect and make
pilpul.
So someone who knows that type of study of uprooting mountains, that person is compared to someone that has a storage full of gold coins. It's like
more than wheat.
So you might think that it's worth more than wheat, right? Yeah. So that's why they weren't sure who they should pick, coins or wheat. And they answered back, Sinai is better. The wheat is better. Why? Because everyone, at the end of the day, needs to have wheat. You can have money. Money could buy wheat, but even the people that have the money need to come to the person that has the wheat to get the wheat. If someone has wheat, maybe he won't have gold coins, but at least he'll be able to survive. So they were saying it's more important to have someone that's very knowledgeable and has everything organized than to be able to go very, very deep into a certain topic.
Never.
Yeah. So they called Rav Yosef and they say, okay, we want to hire you. We want to hire you to lead the academy. Rav Yosef says, no, I'm not going to. Why? Because certain stargazers came over to him at an earlier time, and they told him that we've seen the stars, that you're going to be a king for 2 years. You're going to be a king for 2 years. And he said, and then you're going to die. You're going to be a king for 2 years, then you're going to die.
What's his name? The one who's going to be a king?
Of Yosef. He was Sinai. Now, a Jew is not allowed to go to stargazers. You're not allowed to ask them. It's against the Torah. But if you happen to hear someone came over to you or somebody found it, it's not against the law, against the Torah to act accordingly, to listen. Right. So he said, I don't want to do it because I'm going to die. It's not my time. Obviously, if I'm getting this message, it's not my time. So he didn't jump for the honor. Now he had the opportunity now to rise to greatness, and he said, "No, I'm not gonna. Not my time right now."
What's his name again?
Rabbi Yosef. So his colleague Rabbi, he was the second choice, so they picked him. He ended up being a leader of the academy for 22 years.
Sinai is his name also.
No, his name was Oker Harim.
Harim.
He was the Rosh Yeshiva for 22 years. During this whole time, Rabbi Yosef stayed alive. And then, after Rabbi passed away, he took over, and he led it for 2.5 years. And then he passed away. So we see, by him waiting it out, he ended up living an extra 22 years. And even when he became king, he outlived the vision of, he said, officially it was supposed to be 2 years, and he did it a half a year longer. So we see, by not pushing to get to that position of greatness, but letting time take its toll, he actually gained, and it came out better. So this is where we see this concept. It doesn't mean not to try to succeed. I don't think that's the meaning over here. The meaning over here is not try to reach for greatness. It's always good to strive and try to get better and get better. But what it means to here is not to jump where you don't belong. If something is not for you, and if something is not
appropriate,
if you're not sure if it's for you or not, you're allowed to try. But if you see that you completely, it's not your ball game, don't try to be who you're not. And if you want to get somewhere and you think that that's where you're going to be, let it roll out. Don't push it. That's what it said. The word over here is doichik. Don't push the time. Let the time work for you. We're going to stop over here. God willing, next week is going to be the last week, and we're going to finish this tractate
of Berachot.
Of Brachot.
That's great.
So we're going to make next week a Tziyum, Mr. Shem. So we'll find out with Eliezer the details of the Tziyum.
5 stars.
5 stars. Okay, thank you, Rosh, for coming.
Thank you, Rabbi.